We're making an easy and healthier version of the incredible Dubai pistachio chocolate bars. We're using simpler ingredients including corn Chex cereal for the classic crunch and pistachios, tahini, maple syrup, and cashew butter in place of pistachio cream. Hello, my name is Nicole Bonilla, and if you love healthier recipes to our favorite foods, then you are in the right place. Now, to make these really easy bars, you'll need a food processor or a blender, or I'm going to use the chopper cup with my immersion blender. Now, you're welcome to jot down these ingredients as we go along, or you can click on the link that's in the video description below, and that will take you to the full recipe with all the details, including nutrition facts, ingredients of substitutions, and frequently asked questions. So the first thing we're going to do is add 1/4 cup of some shelled pistachios to our chopper cup, and then we're just going to blend this on high until they're chopped down nice and fine. And that's perfect. Next, we'll add our wet ingredients, which includes 1/4 cup of some maple syrup as our natural sweetener, 2 tablespoons of cashew butter. Now, you could use just tahini in this, but I find that the flavor is a little bit on the bitter side. So I really like to use the cashew butter with tahini because the cashew butter has a really subtle flavor and just kind of enhances the tahini without it being quite so bitter. But you could use all tahini or all cashew, or you could even use almond butter if you prefer. Next, I'll add 1 tablespoon of the tahini and 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, which is going to help them to firm up because it solidifies when it's cold, and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract and a pinch of salt. And then we'll just blend this together till it's nice and smooth. Now, the classic Dubai chocolate bars use kataifi phyllo dough. Now, it isn't gluten-free and it can be a little tricky to find. So I found that a really great, easy substitution is just using some Chex cereal. And you could use either the corn Chex or the rice Chex, and they're naturally gluten-free. So to quickly crush them down, we're just going to add 2 cups to a plastic bag and just crush it with your hands. And then we can just dump them into our mixing bowl. And then I'll just go in and break up some of these squares that didn't quite get smashed. Now, you could use pistachio cream to replace this mixture that we just made up, but I really like having control over these ingredients, and the cream can be a little on the pricey side and hard to find. Then we'll just pour a mixture right down on top of our Chex cereal. And then we'll just mix it all together. And you just kind of keep flipping it over and kind of mashing it down with your spatula until it's all incorporated. And it smells delicious. Now, to form the bars, I'm just going to use a 4x8 bread pan. Now, you could easily double this recipe if you wanted to use an 8x8 square pan. And then I'm just going to line it with a sheet of parchment paper and score the inside corners so they're nice and neat. And then just press and fold it right up over the sides. And then we can just drop our mixture right inside. And then we're just going to start pressing this down nice and even. Now, if you could use more healthy inspiration on a regular basis, I invite you to join my email list. All you have to do is click on the link that's in the video description below, and that is the best way for us to stay connected. Now, the firmer that we're able to press this down, the more intact our bars are going to stay. So once I have this pressed out fairly evenly, I can flip over one of our little parchment paper flaps, and then I can either come in and try and press it down even firmer with my hand, or I have a second bread pan that's the same size, so I'm just going to push this right down and press down with a little elbow grease. And that will help get them pressed down nice and firm. And that looks perfect. Now, to melt down the chocolate layer that goes on top, we're going to take 1/3 cup of your favorite chocolate chips, and I'm just adding 2 teaspoons of coconut oil. And then we're just going to microwave this in 2 30-second intervals until it's nice and melted. So after our first 30-second interval, we can see that it's starting to melt, but not quite there yet. So I'm just going to give it a quick stir to move things around. And then we'll put it back in for an additional 30 seconds. So after 2 rounds of 30 seconds, we can see that's much more melted. And then we'll just give it a good stir till it's nice and smooth. Now, an additional option for adding some green chocolate over the top of the bars is to melt down a little bit of white chocolate. So I've just taken about a tablespoon of some white chocolate chips, and I'm just going to add about 1/2 teaspoon of some coconut oil. And then I'm just going to melt this down in the microwave with the same method we just used. So after our 2 rounds of 25 seconds, our white chocolate is nice and melted. So I'm just going to stir this together till it's nice and smooth. Now, you have 2 options for coloring this green, and if you're going to use food coloring, it's extremely important that you use an oil-based green food coloring, because if you use just regular food coloring that is water-based, it's going to cause your chocolate to seize up and it gets kind of dry and crumbly. So make sure that your green food coloring is oil-based. Nod your head that you heard me. Now the second option is to use some organic powder. So I'm just going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of some spirulina powder. It has this really beautiful green. And then to help it go to a little bit more of a yellow green versus a blue green, I'm just going to sprinkle in a couple dashes of orange turmeric. And then we'll just mix this together really well. And I promise the flavor is so subtle you'll never know it's there. And then we have this beautiful green color in our melted white chocolate. So now we can take our melted chocolate and just pour it right over our bars. And then we'll just spread it over the top with our spatula. And then to help it get down into all those crevices, I'm just going to tap it down on my counter a few times. And I'll just take a spoon with some of our green white chocolate and we'll just drizzle that right over the top. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. So I'm going to go diagonally one direction and then I'm going to switch and go diagonally the other direction. Oh, that looks so cool. And then before the chocolate sets, I'll sprinkle in just a little bit more of our chopped pistachios. And this is also optional, but I'm just going to sprinkle on just a tiny bit of some coarse sea salt. But if you're watching your sodium, go ahead and leave this out. Well, these look gorgeous, and all we have to do is let them set in either the fridge or the freezer until they're solid. Now, if you're impatient like me, you'll want to put them in your freezer because it only takes about 15 to 20 minutes. And now I have a batch here that I made last night, and it's not surprising that these have already been gotten into because they are that good and irresistible. So once it's solid, we can just come in with our knife and we'll cut it into a bar. And then I like to cut it down into thirds because I think it makes a really nice little 2-bite piece. Now, no, these don't have chocolate on the top and the bottom like the traditional bars, but you saw how easy they were to make, and I think it helps to cut down a little bit on the sugar content. And you don't miss out on anything in the flavor. Sorry, I was talking my mouth full. These are delicious. Those are seriously so good. As soon as you bite in, you get that satisfying crunch coming in from the Chex cereal, and then you get that gentle sweetness of the maple syrup, and then you get that really delicious earthy flavor of the pistachios, because they're kind of buttery because we blended them down in the filling, and then you get a little bit of crunchy ones on the top, and then of course the chocolate is so good and just brings it all together. And I love how easy they are to make and that they're made with clean, natural ingredients. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen. I have included a link to the full recipe and it's in the video description below, and that will take you to my website, gentletummy.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I cannot wait to have you hang out with me again in my kitchen.